China lowers its benchmark lending rates to support economic growth. The 16th BRICS summit kicks off tomorrow in Kazan, Russia. And US presidential envoy Amos Hochstein reveals his nation's commitment to supporting the Lebanese economy. Hello and welcome to the Economic Bulletin here at Qnews, where we present comprehensive coverage and expert insights on key updates regarding pivotal economic trends and financial shifts. We start off today with Asia, where China has lowered its benchmark lending rates, aligning with expectations as part of ongoing efforts to stimulate the economy. The one-year loan prime rate dropped by 25 basis points to 3.1%, while the five-year loan prime rate also fell by 25 basis points to 3.6%. These rate cuts follow reductions in other policy rates last month, including a cut to banks' reserve requirement ratio in a bid to support the struggling property sector and boost consumption. This marks the most aggressive stimulus package since the pandemic. Also, China's industrial production has grown during the first three quarters of 2024, driven by a shift towards intelligent and green technologies. From January to September, the total value added by industrial enterprises above the designated size rose by 5.8% compared to the previous year. The industrial sector was a key contributor to the national economy, accounting for nearly 40% of GDP during the same period. Structural adjustments revealed that equipment, manufacturing, and high-tech industries outpaced overall industrial growth, with value added in these sectors rising by 7.5% and 9.1% respectively. South Korea's exports for the first 20 days of October dropped 2.9% year-on-year. Customs agency data showed that exports of semiconductors rose 36.1%, while the export of cars and petroleum products fell 3.3% and 40%, respectively. Shipments to China rose 1.2%, while those to the United States and the European Union fell 2.6% and 8.9%, respectively. Average daily exports increased 1% in September. Exports rose for the 12th consecutive month, but the pace of growth cooled. Malaysia's economy is estimated to have grown 5.3% in the third quarter on an annual basis, slower than the 5.9% growth seen in the second quarter. Official data revealed that the growth was driven by services, manufacturing, construction, and agriculture. 3.4%. Exports rose 7.8%, while imports surged by 20.8%. Final GDP figures will be released on November the 15th. The United States now, and Vice President Kamala Harris's campaign has raised a record $1 billion in the three-month period ending September 30th. In September alone, her campaign and associated party committees raised over $359 million, far surpassing the $160 million raised by former President Donald Trump and his campaign. According to the Federal Election Commission filings, Harris's campaign also reported spending $270 million last month, primarily on advertisements. Still in the United States, the Bank of America has introduced guaranteed foreign exchange rates for up to 1 year, the longest tenor in the industry. This aims to help businesses manage currency risks as cross-border payments increase. The bank stated that securing guaranteed FX rates with longer tenors can improve forecasting, leading to better informed decision-making. In Europe, the European Central Bank policymaker Gediminas Simkus expects the bank to lower its key interest rate to a natural level of 2 to 3%. However, Simkus, who also serves as Lithuania's central bank governor, suggested that rates could be reduced further still if inflation continues to fall significantly. Speaking in Vilnius, he noted that if disinflation becomes more entrenched, the ECB might need to cut rates below the natural threshold to stabilize the economy. Germany's finance ministry has dismissed reports that it is considering a law to block foreign takeovers of domestic banks. The denial follows claims in an Italian newspaper that Berlin was considering restrictions on foreign ownership, particularly as Italy's UniCredit pursues a potential merger with Germany's Commerzbank. UniCredit has expressed interest in merging with Commerzbank after building a significant stake in the state-backed bank. The German Federal Statistics Office has announced that producer prices fell more than expected in September, declining 1.4% year-on-year. The decrease was due to a dip in energy prices, which were 6.6% lower in September compared with the same month last year. Mineral oil products in particular were down 14.4%. September saw the 15th consecutive drop in Germany's producer price index, a crucial measure of inflation. The 16th BRICS summit will officially kick off tomorrow in Kazan, Russia's largest city, with the participation of 24 heads of state and the UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres. Russia is chairing the BRICS group this year under the theme Strengthening Multilateralism for Equitable Global Development and Security. During its rotating presidency, Russia has set three main priorities: political and security cooperation, economic and financial collaboration, and humanitarian and cultural exchanges.
The 16th BRICS summit will begin tomorrow in Kazan, Russia, marking a significant gathering in BRICS history. Russian President Vladimir Putin will host leaders from key nations, including Egypt, China, South Africa, and others. The summit is expected to emphasize Russia's message for the West, indicating that Moscow remains engaged on the global stage. Under the theme Strengthening Multilateralism for Equitable Global Development and Security, the summit will focus on expanding the bloc's influence. Notably, the BRICS Plus format, which includes new members like Egypt, Ethiopia, and United Arab Emirates, will also be a focal point. The summit may pave the way for further BRICS expansions, with over 20 countries expressing interest in joining, including Azerbaijan, Turkey, and Mongolia. Key discussions will include alternative platforms for international payments and the establishment of a BRICS grain trading exchange aimed at reducing reliance on Western markets. For Russia, this summit is an opportunity to strengthen alliances and counter Western dominance in global trade and diplomacy.
Now, joining us today to discuss the latest economic developments related to the BRICS summit in Russia, we have, and its potential impacts, we have Ali Hamoudi, who is an economic expert. Thank you very much, Mr. Hamoudi, for joining us on the program. Now, why could this BRICS summit in Russia be the most important one yet? And do you think that could be true?
First of all, thanks for having me. I think that remains to be seen. I think it's always good for countries to meet and discuss current and future plans. But making it this is the most important or the most important summit, I guess, remains to be seen. I mean, we know that Russia has foremost on its mind its the proposal for a payment system that reduces the dependence on the dollar, basically to circumvent all the sanctions that the U.S. and the West have imposed on Russia.
Okay, and could you explain to us this multi-currency system idea, and how feasible is it that they might implement such a thing for BRICS countries?
I think it's a great idea to have because I guess not only Russia but many other countries see themselves or might see themselves in the shoes of Russia. And is there another financial system where they can safely depend on, to basically keep away from any possible sanctions against them from the U.S. But in practical terms, I think it's still something to ponder for the future. I don't think really this is something that can be done immediately. Yes, countries can agree to do bilateral trade in each other's currency. That is possible, but to have a viable system or a payment system where everybody else can rely on and depend on, it's a little bit far-fetched in my opinion. Don't forget that still to this day 80% of global trade is done in U.S. dollars, and in order to do trade in U.S. dollars, you need the SWIFT, basically the payment system that everybody trusts and everybody knows about.
Okay, so it's far-fetched, perhaps, and if it is going to happen, it's probably a long way into the future. Now, BRICS countries contribute significantly to global exports and imports. What steps could BRICS take to increase its influence over global trade in the coming years?
I guess yes. I mean, global trade. And it's BRICS countries, their share of global trade is increased, and then they will have a bigger share. I mean, that's the whole point of BRICS. Basically, we are countries that that are a third or more of the world's population, with increasing clout in terms of financial capabilities and trade percentages. And we want we want to be heard. Hence, the BRICS was formed. But in order for it to succeed, they need to have a financial system that they can transact with, that the rest of the world also can accept. And most of the BRICS countries, they depend on the U.S. dollar as the means in which they price most of their products, their exports, and expect payments in. So unless they come out with a proper system where they other countries can expect to be building their own, for example, the yuan or the Egyptian pounds or whatever, then it's still, in my opinion, in its infancy, but for a good reason. It's good to have, because this could be, I guess, the beginning of the end for dependence on the U.S. dollar.
Okay, well, let me just, I wanted to ask you about Egypt particularly, actually. Egypt has recently joined BRICS. What economic benefits could Egypt expect from this, particularly in terms of trade and investment and industrial growth?
I mean, Egypt's participation, for sure, it is of benefit to it. I mean, BRICS membership could facilitate, I guess, increased trade with other member states, particularly in areas such as agriculture, energy, and manufacturing. Egypt's export to the BRICS nations in 22 was valued at 7 billion. This is a rough figure, but I mean, this could increase. So the expansion of economic ties with the BRICS countries could indeed attract further trade, and most importantly, more foreign investment into Egypt's economy, which is badly needed. I mean, the only way forward, in my opinion, for Egypt to come out from its current situation is for more direct foreign investment to come in. So BRICS country and BRICS membership could actually facilitate that. Egypt has the human capital, access to various ports and seas,
Okay.
which can be used by, for example, China. China wants to set up a factory.
Okay.
Then Egypt
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much for joining us on the program. Unfortunately, we're just out of time, but thank you for your insights, Mr. Ali Hamoudi. Thank you very much. Now, in related news, the Russian President Vladimir Putin has announced that trade between Russia and the United Arab Emirates has tripled over the past 3 years. This came during a meeting with the United Arab Emirates President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan in Moscow, where they discussed trade relations and key geopolitical issues, including the Ukraine conflict and tensions in the Middle East. Putin noted that bilateral investments have now reached $7 billion. However, trade saw a slight decline in the last 7 months of this year, which will be addressed in their negotiations. In the MENA region, the Egyptian Minister of Planning, Economic Development and International Cooperation, Rania El-Mashat, says that Egypt has allocated 118 billion Egyptian pounds for human development in the 24-25 budget. The international cooperation portfolio for this sector totals $7 billion, including concessional financing, grants and debt swaps. She highlighted the Takaful and Karama program funded by the World Bank with $1.4 billion in soft financing that's been running for 9 years and supports 20 million Egyptians. Tunisia plans to cut its budget deficit to 5.5% in 2025 from 6.3% in 2024, boosting revenues through higher taxes on businesses and high-income earners. The government targets 3.2% GDP growth next year, up from 2.1% this year. It expects national debt to drop to 80.5% of GDP in 2025. The budget will total 78.2 billion dinars, a 3.3% rise from 2024, with tax revenues projected to increase by 7.3% to $14.57 billion. Taxes on high earners and large companies will also rise, while public sector wages will be reduced to 13.3% of GDP. Amos Hochstein, the U.S. presidential envoy, has stated that the United States is committed to the supporting of the Lebanese economy. He emphasized the importance of supporting the military to enhance stability in the country. The U.S. envoy called on the international community to engage in supporting Lebanon, adding that there will be a reconstruction process and that significant economic support for the Lebanese state will be essential. Hochstein made these statements during a press conference following his visit to Lebanon. The Associated Press has reported on the losses incurred by the Israeli economy since October 7, 2023, noting that the government is grappling with unprecedented financial burdens that threaten to undermine the foundations of its economy. According to the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, Israeli military spending has skyrocketed from $1.8 billion per month before the war to $4.7 billion per month by the end of last year. The total annual military expenditure reached $27.5 billion, accounting for 5.3% of Israel's GDP. Israel's economy experienced a sharp contraction of 5.6% in the last quarter of 2023, marking the worst economic performance among all OECD countries. So to commodities, oil prices increased on Monday, recouping in some of last week's more than 7% decline, following worries about demand in China and easing concerns about potential supply disruptions in the Middle East. Brent crude futures were up 1.51% to $74.16 a barrel, and U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude futures were up 1.82% to $70.48 per barrel. Gold prices surged for the fifth consecutive day, reaching a record high amid concerns over the U.S. election, escalating tensions in the Middle East, and expectations that central banks may cut interest rates. Spot gold gained 0.7% to $2,739.50 per ounce, and U.S. gold futures were 0.7% higher at $2,750. Global markets had a mixed performance amid China announcing it's cutting its 1-year and 5-year loan prime rates. In the United States, the S&P 500 was unchanged. The Dow Jones Industrial Average slipped 0.1%, and the Nasdaq Composite was 0.2% higher. In Europe, Germany's DAX was down 0.9%, while the CAC 40 in Paris also lost 1%, and Britain's FTSE 100 lost 0.2%. In Asia, Hong Kong's Hang Seng decreased 1.5%, the Shanghai Composite gained 0.2%, Tokyo's Nikkei 225 index edged 0.1% lower, while Seoul's Kospi rose 0.4%. And that's all the economic stories for now, but here's a roundup of today's key headlines. China lowers its benchmark lending rates to support economic growth. The 16th BRICS summit kicks off tomorrow in Kazan, Russia. And the U.S. presidential envoy, Amos Hochstein, reveals commitment to support the Lebanese economy. And that's all the economic news for this bulletin. Stay connected on our social media at Qnews EGY. Thanks for watching.